My name is Naja Liggins. I'm a senior English major attending Spelman College from a really small town in Louisiana. Upon graduation, I would love to enter the sports industry. So far, I've had internships with the Houston Astros, 23XI Racing, Georgia Tech Athletics, and I recently just started with Warner Brother Discoveries in their sports department, working across all of their sports properties. So I'm just really here. I'm really glad to meet you today. And I guess you can go ahead and introduce yourself as well. And kind of just, I would love to hear a brief summary about you, your current role, and like what you do.
For sure. My name is Zena Keita. I am from North Carolina, originally born in France, raised in North Carolina, went to undergrad at Yale University, went to grad school at Wake Forest University, School of Business, got my master's in management before I went on to start my sports career. I started my sports career, and most of my sports career has been on the team side. So I started in the NFL, worked with the Miami Dolphins for a few years, and then jumped over to the NBA, helped the Golden State Warriors open up their new building, Chase Center. And after doing that for about 8 years, I was like, I want to try something different. Wanted to get to sports and tech. And that is like my main job now, sports tech and media. And I work with The Athletic, doing partnerships with them. And that's what I was doing with the team side, partnerships always. And then that kind of covered the tech and media aspect of it. But I wanted to jump a little bit more into media, go after a lifelong dream I've always had, which was getting into sports media and reporting. And so in addition to my corporate day job with The Athletic, I also do some sideline reporting for the Santa Cruz Warriors, as well as some on-air hosting for the Golden State Warriors. So super fun. That's more of my hobby, but my main job is manager of strategic partnerships at The Athletic.
Got you. And what does strategic partnerships, like, what does that look like, and what do you do in your day-to-day?
For sure. So with The Athletic, if you guys are not familiar with it, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically a online sports newspaper that is supposed to be the solve for people who have teams all over the country or all over the world. So rather than having to subscribe to a million different small newspapers to keep up with beat reporters that focus on specific teams or specific leagues or specific regions, you can just subscribe to The Athletic and get it all under one umbrella.
All over the place.
Yep. And so basically, I work in a partnerships capacity to be able to help build that platform and make it better for our readers. So if you're a sports reader and a sports fan, and you're coming to The Athletic for all of your best sports news, which is what we provide. We were just acquired from the New York Times, and you could call us the New York Times of sports. We're going to have as much information, in depth, very educated, just a more elevated version of sports news. That's great. We cover that element of it. We can give you your scores and your stats as well. But if you're a sports fan, there's other elements to your fandom. So you probably want to buy tickets to games. You probably want to buy jerseys when you want to support a fan or support a team. You probably want to watch the game on TV and you want to figure out how to stream the games or the events. So my job is to figure out what kind of partnerships could we bring to The Athletic? What brands and entities could we partner with to make that experience better for the sports fan? So they're coming there to not only get the media, the news, but they're also getting an opportunity to potentially buy tickets, to buy jerseys, to learn how to stream, to learn about fantasy betting or whatever it is. And so, so that's what my team works on. Day to day, I work with clients, similar to partnerships on the team side. You're working with a brand that came in to spend money to be a part of the experience. I am that person that communicates with the client, but then also communicates internally with everyone that helps execute their partnership. So I am that main focal point for both sides to ensure that whatever needs to be executed that was a part of the agreement gets executed. I handle not only the execution of social or content or any sort of branding on the site, but I also handle the more logistical elements, like making sure the legal elements are right, the contract is making sure the money is correct so that everyone's on the same page about what is owed and are we delivering based on what we said that we were going to deliver. So it's a mix of a lot of interdepartmental and interclient communication to make sure everyone's on the same page and that we are delivering as a partner, a good partner. We're delivering on what we promised to deliver, and we're looking for opportunities to deliver even more than we promised to deliver.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned you worked with the Dolphins and then also with Golden State and now with the Athletics. So like what are some key lessons and skills that you've kind of learned throughout your journey?
For sure. So because uh, most of my career has been in partnerships, I would say the number one thing that every single person, whether you're in partnerships, in sales, in accounting, in whatever, I think everyone needs to have some basic level of sales. And what I mean
Mhm.
by that is like not necessarily having the experience of having sold a ticket or the experience of having sold partnerships, but everyone needs to have the basic level of being able to sell themselves. Number one, you're going to sell yourself on an interview. Number two, you're going to have to sell your ideas once you get inside an organization. And then number three, you're going to have to sell people on you to keep working with you and keep trying to grow with you. As you get into an organization, it doesn't just stop there. If you want to grow, and this is for people who want to grow, if you want to just do your job and be fine, that's cool too. But if you're trying to grow and you're trying to get new opportunities and new experiences, you're going to have to sell people on the concept that you are worth growing with and growing for.
Mhm.
And so that means you're going to have to be able to efficiently communicate. You're going to have to be able to find out what is the why for someone else. Like, why would they help you? Why would they want to buy into this concept? Why, whatever. All of those elements are sales elements. And I say this as someone that like, quote, hated sales. Like going into my career, I was told to do corporate sales, whether it was in sports or whatever. But when I was in business school, that was like the result of like all my tests, all my professors were like, you would do really well with corporate sales. And it really just comes down to you're selling yourself, you're selling your ideas, you're selling the ability for people to, or you're selling people's want to be a part of whatever you're building. And so
Mhm.
that is, I think, the biggest lesson I've learned is just like to have that element to you. Another lesson I've learned is transparency, honesty, all of those type of like very core, integral, like moral type of values goes a long way in business,
Mhm.
especially in sports business, because the world is very small in sports business. People know you, and then they go join another team, they go join another league, they go join another agency, and you'd be shocked how much you cross paths with other people again when you're
Right.
for a new job or when you're whatever. So being able to be someone that's trustworthy, someone that's transparent on in what they're trying to do, or if they make a mistake, someone that's honest with their intentions, those type of like basic moral skills that we were taught as little kids is incredibly, incredibly important in corporate America and specifically in sports business, because there are people that are not qualified for their jobs that are getting great jobs in sports,
They know people.
but they're great people. And
Mhm.
people would like, they're not qualified for their jobs. I put quotations around that. Like on paper, they might not have what the job description called for,
The experience.
but the experience, exactly. They might not have the experience called for, but they're great people to work with and they have a
Mhm.
good track record. And people are like, will say they're a great leader, they're a great teammate. I really appreciated working with them as a client. I really appreciated working them as my project manager or whatever it is. That will help you and go a long way. So those two things, having some sales components, AKA being able to communicate well, sell yourself, and then also just having those like basic integral human like moral qualities, super
Mhm.
important as well.
Got you. And then kind of just like looking at your overall journey, what would you say are like some of your key highlights or moments that you've enjoyed the most during your journey?
Yeah. I would call out, hmm, I'd call out two things. And then there's one that I'm hoping is about to happen. Well, it definitely is going to happen, but I would say that would be my third one. So my first thing that I was really, really excited and proud about, and I still am when I go into the building and I see this, when I left the Miami Dolphins, I felt very underutilized. I knew I was really smart. I knew I was really capable of doing more than I was, but I was simply a coordinator. And at the end of the day, coordinators have a certain level of responsibilities and not much more. The good news is my SVP, when I was at the Miami Dolphins, Todd Klein, he knew my capabilities. So he was bringing me on to these meetings and these conversations, um, that were higher above my pay grade, I guess, so I could be a fly on the wall and listen. But at the end of the day, I couldn't get my hands dirty. I couldn't be directly involved in those conversations because I was a coordinator, didn't have the experience. So when I got to go to the Golden State Warriors, that was a game changer for me. Because again, I knew I could sell partnerships. I knew I could activate partnerships. I knew I could think outside the box. I knew I could represent a brand really, really well. Just give me the chance. And that's what the Golden State Warriors did with me. And it was a really fun first year with them because I did that in the most important times that I could have possibly needed to do that in my career, when we were opening a brand new building. And anyone in partnerships, anyone in general in sports, if you get to be at the starting point or at the base level of any big time project, it's a big deal. Like, it's great for your career. It shows up well on resumes. It's a dope experience to be a part of. And so I got to be a part of selling partnerships into a building that literally did not exist yet. They were building it, but we were going off of renderings. We were going off of like, this is what we think it's going to look like. And then having to sell partnerships and then fit what we sold into what actually was built. And for the most part, everything was, up to date with what we sold versus what actually happened. But it was crazy going around the country, pitching huge brands on the opportunity to be in what they were at the time. And the Warriors hate hearing this, but the Madison Square Garden of the West, right? Like big time building that was going to bring all this amazing talent to it. That was going to be the home of the Golden State Warriors, who were champions, like all the above. It was really, really dope to be a part of these negotiations. I mean, this is big dollars, very important, big budgets we're trying to tap into. And I got to be a part of the people putting pitches in front of these really important decision makers and convincing them, yes, come spend your money with the Warriors. The return on it would be worth it. And then turning around and having to execute it. So I was very, very pleased and proud with the work that we did to get the right partners in the building, to make them show up well within our building, and then to create really creative partnerships that were worth the amount of money, or the amount of dollars we were asking them to invest with us. So that was number one. Number two, COVID. So after we asked all those people for money, that was 2018, 2019, we turn around and all of that money they just tied up for us barely can be used because COVID. There are no fans in the stand. There's nothing going on the courts, in the hallways. We can't sell alcohol. We can't sell food or beverage and merch and all that because the building is shut down. Where are those hundreds of thousands of dollars going to go? And that led to two programs I'm incredibly proud of, having to come up with how to use funds that were sitting there that needed to be spent because they just committed it to us. And that was one. The first one was United Airlines. They wanted to do something around small businesses. They had about, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say the amount, but they had about $300K to spend. And they wanted something to be better than what most people were doing to help small businesses, which was, here you go, small business, $5,000. Hope that helps. Here you go, small business. Here's a couple thousand or a couple hundred to help your, feed your people or give them some money during COVID. That was great. People definitely needed it, but it was dry. And so we wanted to do something that was a little bit more meaningful and a little bit long lasting. And I came up against a little bit of friction internally where people were like, some of the ideas that I'd come up with alongside some people with our team, Avonda Anderson was our head of supply, like our supply chain relationships. And she noticed that a lot of the people that we were working with were not minority-owned businesses. And because we're in the Bay, our minority-owned businesses were mostly Asian. And she was like, we need to do something about this. Like, we don't have a lot of Black-owned businesses. We don't have a lot of Hispanic-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. Like, when we say we work with minority-owned businesses, they're mostly Asian. We need to do better about that. So that was one aspect of it. And she also mentioned, like, we could work with this group that works with minority-owned businesses and like find more. And I was like, but there's more to this. And I remember asking my sister, who was a freelance graphic designer who had her own business. And I was like, are you registered as a minority-owned business? And she was like, girl, I don't have time for that. I don't know nothing about that. I don't even know where to start with that. And I was like, there it is. I can imagine my sister is very smart, very capable. Someone that starts their own company is very smart and capable to figure out these things, to sign up as a minority owned business. But when do you have time? Who gives you that? Like, there's not a direct line of this is what you do to sign up as that. Like, they don't send that information out when you sign up your business, right? So I was like, that's what we need to do. We need to get United on board to sponsor getting small businesses to learn how to become minority-owned businesses officially, so that big companies like the Golden State Warriors, like a United Airlines, can have them on their roster when they say, hey, we need graphic designers. Here's the list of all the minority-owned businesses. And they're not just Asian. They're more than that, right? There are people like my sister. So we pitched it and we put it through, and United loved it so much. We ended up calling it the franchise fund. United loved it so much, they literally asked me to send over the kind of breakdown that I created out of this so they could try and run it with the Chicago Blackhawks. It is now 3 years running. I did it the year of COVID, like 2020, 2021. It's still running. They've had 63 businesses or something like that already sign up. And the NBA just recognized this program as its most impactful community program of their past year.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't get that award because I wasn't there to get it because I left. But I am very proud of that. Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud that this is a program that people weren't understanding. Like, how is this going to work? Like, what does this mean? And I'm like, from the program outline to every single piece of copy on the website to the actual sign up page, I did myself. And I'm not saying that no one else helped me. Like, again, Avonda Anderson helped me out. The Western Regional Minority Businesses Group, Cecil Plummer, he helped me out with like the concept. But being able to like stay up all night to come up with this and all that, I'm very, very proud of that work. And I'm very proud of how many people it's helping. So that's one. Second one, Nike. During the COVID, same thing. They had money to spend on a social impact type of event. Usually they had something called Beyond the Baseline. They would bring in underrepresented groups, maybe about 60 middle schoolers or so, to come in and speak to one of our employees at the Warriors that aren't a player, right? Beyond the baseline. There are other jobs in sports, you know this, beyond just being an athlete. Right. And so it was, you could talk to our photographer, you could talk to our head of accounts or finance, you could talk to whomever, but that's what it was about. And we would lead a workshop and Nike would sponsor it and they'd get some gear and stuff like that. And it would work really well. It was always super, super interesting and cool for the kids, but we couldn't do that this year. We couldn't put people in rooms with each other during COVID. So in talking with Kimberly Veal, who was our head of our head of PR with corporate comms and such, I was like, she came up, she was like, what if we did an outdoor virtual camp? Or excuse me, what if we did an outdoor basketball camp? And like we did it in a parking lot and each of the girls had their own like little spot. Now, Kimberly is like big ideas girl. Like she's always been that person. And I kind of go in and I give her a little bit of, okay, can't do that, but we could, right? We could do this. And so we took her idea and we've turned it into a virtual clinic. And she went out and used her relationships. She used to work for the Seattle Storm. She used her relationships to be able to get some big time players. Asia Wilson, WNBA, MVP, champion, all the above, you name it, she's everything.
She's done it.
She's done it. Jewel Lloyd, Kelsey Plum, Natasha Cloud, 4 WNBA champions, big time athletes who were all actually on their way to USA basketball camp. And she convinced them to do a virtual panel and clinic. And we did this in conjunction with National Girls and Women in Sports Day. Instead of 60 middle schoolers being helped, we ended up helping 700.
Oh, wow.
700 joined the panel and the virtual clinic. Our camps team, we have a very good camps team. We took all of the women coaches from our camps team and had them lead a virtual clinic alongside the WNBA players. So as these young girls are doing the drills, Asia Wilson's doing the drills with them. Jewel Lloyd's doing the drills with them. It was all women. And then we combined it because I think it's February 2nd, February 3rd is National Girls and Women's Sports Day. we combined it with Black History Month. So we worked with the Black ERG at our employee resource group at the Warriors, and we had them giving Black female quotes and facts about Black female athletes throughout the program. Dopest collaboration, and this is Nike. Like Nike sent hundreds of, so we chose a certain cohort within that group of all those middle schoolers that got gear, that got basketballs, that got to come on screen and do the drills with the girls, with the basketball players. And Nike doesn't say anything, like they don't say yes to anything. Unless it's their idea, they're not doing it. So it was really cool that they signed off on it. They supported it. They worked with the agents of the girls to make sure that, things could be signed. They got basketball signed, everything. It was phenomenal. Really cool collaboration with so many women across our entire organization. Yeah, so I'm very, very, very proud of those two programs.
That's awesome. And you kind of mentioned like life outside of just being an athlete. And I know that you played collegiate basketball. So kind of what was that transition like from being an athlete and playing the sport to working in sports?
For sure. It's coming now in handy now that I do sports reporting, so I can talk from the perspective of having played basketball as opposed to like being someone that's all about the stats. I'm not a stats person. I wish I was, but I just more talk about what I see. But transitioning for me was hard at first because I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was never a basketball player, like with the A at the end, or, I was a nerd. I was a nerd that happened to play basketball. I did not bring, Spalding to prom. I was not that girl that was just like, basketball is life. I just happened to play basketball, and I knew there was an opportunity to use basketball to get me to college. And so for me, even in college, I was doing other things other than basketball. I was probably one of the most active on my team of doing things beyond basketball. So I worked for the Yale Daily News, and I did other clubs and things on campus, but it was all about how can I use this thing that is fun, but do something that people respect me out of. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to the W. So what else can I do? And so I ended up pivoting real hard and went to business school to figure that out. And that's when it became a little bit like, okay, there are some skills I didn't know I had. Things that come from playing sports, being a leader, being a good communicator, working with difficult personalities, working with different personalities, getting to an end goal, being able to identify and communicate the end goal. All these things come from having played a sport, being able to take criticism, being able to own up to mistakes. Like all these things are sports related, and they're also really good business skills. So that helped me transition into business and be able to do sports business. And so that worked out.
Gotcha. And then I guess to kind of just wrap up this conversation, what advice would you have for college students like myself who's about to graduate or recent graduates who are looking to pursue a career in sports?
For sure. Well, one, I'll say you're above or ahead of the game. I'll say this with the career I've had. I did not have any sports business internships in college. I did not intern with any entities. All my sports experience during college and summer were sports camps. Right. So I did not actually work in any sort of a business capacity in sports. So if you already have an internship, if you already have your name out there with someone in the sports business realm, you're ahead of the game. 2, once you get your name out there, continue to network. And I know people kind of go, I was that person. I hated the concept of networking.
Same.
Yeah, it just seems icky, right? When you think networking, it's like, hi, I'm Zena. How can you help me? It's like, I don't like that. And I didn't like that at all. And I remember my professor at Wake Forest, Marcia Yadiel, like, she still laughs at me to this day when I see her. She's like, I can't believe you were the person that came up to me after class and was like, I don't like to network. And you didn't want to network. And she told me that day, she was like, you don't like to network, but you do it every day. Every single time you go to meet somebody and you're talking to somebody and you make a connecting point.
That's networking.
That's networking. Anytime you go, oh my God, I like your hair. Where'd you get, like, where's your edge control from? That's networking, like something that simple of just asking someone very simply, like, this is something that you and I have in common. Let's build off that.
Right.
Maybe later on that could be used. But it's not as grimy as it seemed to me in my mind. So I definitely think that's definitely a skill that young people need to be mindful of, is that networking is not this like, I'm going to go talk to someone because I hope they could do something for me. It's I'm going to go talk to someone so I can learn something from them, and it may or may not be useful in the future. And then let's move on. But it's just talking to people. So I think that that's another skill, like, or that's a thing I would tell people looking for jobs in sports. Get over that hump of networking and realize what it is versus what it's not. And I would also say it's important to get general skills of how to communicate with people who are in the positions that you're at. I can't tell you how many people, and I was very proud of you, Naja, for this. I can't tell you how many people I'll say, send me a calendar invite. They don't know what that means. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to properly send it. They're kind of like, what? What's going on? And I get it. I don't fault them, because it's not a skill you typically learn in college, right? Like you don't have an email communications class on how to properly email people or how to set up calendar invitations. And it's a very, and corporate America is a very corporate America place, in the sense that there's certain language, there's certain ways to speak, there's certain ways to interact, that not everyone has that experience to learn. And it's hard. You have to learn by experience. You have to learn while you're in there. But I would say, if you can, talk to people at your college, talk to coaches, or talk to, because there's career coaches and there's, whatever. Figure out a way to get involved with something on campus so that you can learn those type of kind of more formalities. Because in sports business, people will quickly write you off if they feel like you're wasting their time. Because the concept is, everybody wants to work in sports. Why you? And so you really have to stand out. You have to be prepared. Right? You have to be prepared whenever your time is like, if somebody sets you up with somebody important or you think is important in sports business, hey, Naja, I'm connecting you with Zena. She works at the Athletics. She used to work in the NBA and the NFL. You better come correct, right? That means the email needs to be sent out on time. If they say send out a calendar invite, you send out that calendar invite. If they say connect with me on LinkedIn, do that. Like, you got to make sure that you're doing these things well, so that the person's like, look at this person. Right. Like they lied and said they saw me on something. They didn't even see me on that. They lied and said that they read something I wrote. I didn't write that. Like, people trying to like, you've got to be on it. And so I think that's another thing that to me is actually way more important than tons of internships or being able to, talk about your favorite team, or being able to be like, oh, I just love sports and that's why I want to work in sports business. Nowadays, they're not even hiring people that played sports really, or were in sports business. They're hiring people outside of sports, because sports is getting more and more technical, more and more analytics driven, more and more creative. Like, you don't have to work in sports now or have played sports to be efficient and effective and successful in sports. So make sure you stand out by making a great impression in the way that you communicate.
Got you. Thank you so much.
Of course.